So next up is Beyond the False Summit, a Matterhorn Expedition to unearth the queer pioneers of alpinism. This is a climbing expedition to explore the following questions. How did queer climbers live when society told them only certain people could achieve great things? How do we document the history of queer people when that very documentation has been and can continue to be a threat to their survival? And by shining a light on this hidden part of history, can we write a more truthful narrative to reach a peak beyond the false summit of exclusion? The expedition will be led by Lance Garland, who is joined tonight by expedition teammates Charlotte Austin and Jordan Cannon. Lance, take it away.
Hey everybody, I just want to say a quick thank you to the whole crew of the Music of Care. As a firefighter, I've had the experience of being with people in their final hours, and that's a very sacred time period, and I'm very grateful to see the work that you guys want to do to help people in those moments. So thank you for that beautiful presentation. That was awesome. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen now.
Lance, can I just chime in and say my mom passed of cancer 3 years ago and got tremendous peace from the piano being played in her final days. So I just wanted to give a deep bow to the other team. Yeah.
Absolutely. So real quick introduction of me. You might recognize me or my name. I just recently had a piece in Hidden Compass called Out of Desolation, and that was part of their legacy issue, and that was originally published in the 2020 issue. I've worked with Hidden Compass before. I love this publication. They do incredible work, and I'm very grateful that they have uplifted the message of this project. Our project is called Beyond the False Summit. We have a couple people that were already introduced. I'm going to ask Charlotte to tell her, where are you at, Charlotte?
I'm in Tofino, British Columbia. I got married 5 days ago, so it's the last day of our time up here in British Columbia, and we're sunburned and surf worn and so happy and grateful. So
awesome. Well, Charlotte's going to do a little presentation later too. Just wanted to introduce her. We also have Jordan with us today. Jordan, can you say hi and tell us where you're joining from?
Hey everyone, I am currently joining from the Red River Gorge in Kentucky on a climbing trip from Las Vegas right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. Jordan's going to come back in here in a bit and talk about a little bit of his part of this project. But I'm going to just dive right into Beyond the False Summit. This is a Matterhorn expedition to unearth the queer pioneers of alpinism. And as Sabine had just said, we have a couple questions that we want to raise. They're very important questions to us. I'm not going to go over those again real quick, but we just want to say that we do want to see what happens when you shine a light on this hidden part of history. Can we help rewrite the narrative and make it more truthful and give representation that is needed? In mountaineering, a false summit is a peak that appears to be the pinnacle of the mountain, but upon reaching it, it turns out that the summit is higher. False peaks can have significant and discouraging effects on climbers' psychological states by inducing feelings of lost hope and even failure. We believe that the history of alpinism is not complete until the narrative includes all the people who partake of the sport. We have a lot of climbing left to do. This all starts in the 1920s, the formative years of modern alpinism. It's going to follow George Mallory, Jeffrey Winthrop Young, and Richard Halliburton. These are the three people that we're going to be following, and their stories are fascinating stories. Here, George Mallory, you probably know his name. He died on Mount Everest in 1924 and has been the subject of a lot of speculation about whether he was the first person to summit the world's highest peak. He's also been the subject of much speculation about his sexuality. On the left is an erotic painting of Mallory, and on the right is a photograph of him naked in a provocative pose. Both of those pictures were created by the openly gay artist Duncan Grant. The middle picture was taken by his climbing friend and suspected lover, Jeffrey Winthrop Young. I've uncovered historical documents that shed light on Mallory's true sexuality, and I intend to share that research with the essay that this grant will produce. Jeffrey Winthrop Young. He was also a famous mountaineer. He wrote books and helped create the outdoor education program Outward Bound. And he had a lot of other accomplishments. His life was affected by intolerance and prejudice, and he lost multiple jobs due to his sexuality. While he did end up marrying a woman, his wife admitted in his biography that he was gay. Young's life is a fascinating picture of what a gay man had to do to survive in the early 20th century. Richard Halliburton. He was a famous explorer and is referred to as a real-life Indiana Jones by his biographers. During his life, he was in the same league as Amelia Earhart and Charles Lindbergh, who captured the public's imaginations with their daring adventures. He traveled the world climbing mountains, breaking records for open water swims, and he wrote books about it. His ghostwriter, Paul Mooney, the man on the right, he became a lifelong lover, and they wrote books together as they traveled the globe. Their story is a powerful tale of living your truth, even when you have to hide it from the public eye. We want to show you a video of the mountain that we want to climb here. And we wanted to bring up the question of why the Matterhorn? This beautiful mountain is world famous. Why do we need to climb it? Well, this peak is an iconic touchstone for the lives of these three men, and it represents very important roots of queer history. So we want to go there and put our hands on this mountain and tell the stories from their perspectives. Now I'm going to introduce Charlotte. She's our expedition guide specialist. She's a worldwide climbing guide who has summited peaks on 5 continents, and she's going to work with local guides in France and Italy and Switzerland and take us through the European Alps and up the Matterhorn. As a woman in a historically masculine dominant field, Charlotte brings important gender diversity, representation, and insight to this project. She expands our project outward and is a very important part to bring in bigger community into a story about a niche group of people. So Charlotte, go ahead and take it away and tell us what you're working on.
Thanks, Lance. I'm so honored to be part of this project, and it's such a unique situation to be a minority in that I'm straight. I just married a man. But in my sort of 15 years in the outdoor industry, I'm very used to being a minority. You know, when I started guiding, I was maybe one of 3 or 4 women in a field of hundreds. And so I wrote a lot about that. I wrote about gender. I wrote about being a minority. And I think, you know, what I really came down to is who hasn't felt different, right? And as Lance and I have been conceiving of this and talking it through, I've been working really hard to educate myself about LGBTQ issues and how that might be affecting not only the climbing and outdoor community, but also the broader world. And I just today I was reading that between 25 and 30% of Americans under the age of 18 identify as LGBTQ or questioning. And I'm so honored to bring what insight I might be able to humbly offer, both in the outdoor industry and also in this conversation about gender. You know, not only to examining the history, but then to what can we learn from the history that can help us kind of set the right tone moving forward? How can we support new people getting it, you know, young people and new people in this industry, understanding the history of people like them. And I think that's just really extraordinary. So Lance, I'm honored to be here, and being shoulder to shoulder with you and Jordan is a true honor. Yeah.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Awesome to hear you're part of the project. I also want to show a short video of Charlotte. I love this video. It kind of says a little bit about her and her personality. So let's watch that.
Having climbed Everest in 2019, it was certainly a big marker in my career as a mountain guide, and you get a lot of affirmation and a lot of publicity. It's really a sexy, shiny experience, and I always knew I would need to build in time and space to come down from Mount Everest, to come down from those experiences. I was sort of ready to find a place to sit still, and I bought a little tiny cabin out on Bainbridge Island and hunkered down to kind of start working on integrating all of those experiences.
Love that. Thank you, Charlotte. So fun to see a little bit of your life. All right, so next up we have Ian. Ian is our expedition photographer. He's an incredible photographer. You know, his excuse for not showing up today is that it's 1:30 in the morning in London, but I found out that the other team is in Barcelona right now. I think it's 2 a.m. So he doesn't really have an excuse, but I just put this together for him to show a little bit about Ian.
I hike because I need to. There's a deep desire within me just to be in the outdoors. I'm always learning something new. I'm always seeing something new. You never see the same thing twice. Don't say anything for a minute and just look up. Look at the trees moving. Look at the effect that the wind has on the trees. Know that the wind has a southwesterly direction into the UK. Know that that wind has been formed somewhere out over the Atlantic and now it's here above your heads moving those trees. And in a world that's changing and in a world that's becoming so fast-paced, I don't think there's ever been a more important time to understand how beautiful the natural world is. My lifestyle used to be fast-paced, city-bound, and I found that lifestyle quite stressful, and I forced myself out. I felt that the outdoors really just slowed me down and gave me a chance to sort of really think about the most important things in life. And just carrying my tent and carrying my worldly belongings on my back became such a simple, beautiful process. And understanding how nature works makes a powerful experience, no matter what you do, whether you're passing through it over a multi-day journey or whether you're spending just a few hours in it.
So Ian makes incredible pictures. I wanted to show a little bit of his website. You can go on and see on ianfinch.com the work that he does, but he does a lot of landscape photography and portraits of people and the action of their activities. And he's going to bring that lens to us on the Matterhorn. And he's going to show the story in a visual way that is powerful and evocative. So I just want to show you that. And we're going to move on to our next member, Jordan. Jordan's a professional climber for Arc'teryx, and he's doing some incredible things. Before I bring him in, I'm going to show a short video so you can see the artistry and the athleticism that Jordan does. So we'll watch this real quick.
Nailed it. Okay, you can take... thanks. Best part about climbing this route is that afterwards you get to do one of the best rope swings in the country.
I just love that video because it shows a little bit of Jordan's personality. So now I'm going to introduce Jordan, and he's going to tell us a little bit about why he's involved in this project.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here. My name is Jordan, and like Lance said, I'm a professional climber sponsored by Arc'teryx. And although that video he just shared shows a little bit of the climbing I do around my home in Las Vegas, I have a decent amount of experience climbing in the mountains as well. But I came out publicly in the climbing world in 2021, and to this day remain to be the only out male professional climber in the industry. And through that process, I've really learned the importance of visibility and have tried my best to be a role model for other gay climbers out there. And largely because I didn't have any role models myself as I was getting into the sport. And I know I would have felt a lot more reassured if I had. For example, I went on an expedition to Pakistan this summer. And upon getting the invitation from two climbing friends of mine, one of the first things that came to my mind is, isn't it illegal to be gay in the Middle East? And what does that look like in terms of, my safety being there? And had I known of other gay climbers that have been to the Himalaya or the Karakoram or climbed the specific mountain that we climbed in Pakistan this summer, I would have had a lot less fear and anxiety or doubt going into that trip. And so the main reason I wanted to get involved with this project upon meeting Lance and the rest of the team is first and foremost my appreciation of climbing history. But more specifically, my own curiosity of the queer history of climbing that I honestly know nothing about. Building more gay community and making more friends like Lance and Charlotte and Ian, getting to climb with them on this trip. and then actively participating in sharing that story with the climbing world. And that is it. Thanks, Lance.
Jordan, thank you very much. I definitely feel very similar. A huge reason why I started this whole project is because I didn't have role models either. I couldn't find people like me. That happened in my firefighting career as well. So that's super pivotal. It's very important, and we want to share our stories, both personally and the stories from the past, with the public. It matters. This is going to really affect people's lives. So first off, the goals for our project is to first off climb the Matterhorn, and we're a multifaceted crew. We're diverse. We have multiple different sexualities, people from different countries. So we want to represent the modern climbing community. Number two, we want to share that historical research. We want to tell these stories of these queer climbers throughout history. The world needs to know about these people. They've been hidden. They're in the shadows to this day. There's, for reasons beyond my understanding, these stories haven't been told. I've been researching this like crazy, and I cannot wait to share with you guys what I've found. And then three, we want to connect with our community. Like Jordan said, we want to show the climbing community what we've found. There is a huge history here. We want to share that with people. We've already started trying to recruit more of our community, and we have 2 people who really want to be part of this. Initially we're going to need this grant funding to get this started for the people who are already on our team, but there are more people who want to be a part of this, and we're going to be fundraising for that. Nikki Smith here is a photographer, a climber, is a massive advocate for the queer climbing community, and she wants to be a part of this as well. And Sam Crossley, who Jordan has worked with on films before, Jordan is a member of the queer climbing community as well. He worked on Free Solo. He's a filmmaker, and he wants to help us share this story. This story is bigger than ourselves. This has a huge impact for a huge community, and they want to get involved. And we're already working with other community partners as well. The Venture Out Project is a nonprofit organization that helps queer and trans people get into the outdoors. Teaching and doing outreach missions, and next year their mission is to do queer storytelling. They want to host us on their blog, share our story with their communities. They want to uplift our message, and that's incredible to us to already have that support. And we're going to do some fundraising things with them as well. So our deliverables, we'll do a quick rundown. We've been talking about this whole time, but Ian's going to do a photo collection. We're going to do a couple events, a pre-expedition fundraiser, and then that post-expedition Ethos of Exploration event with the Hidden Compass crew. We're going to do that. Charlotte's going to write an essay about the ways that trauma informed the history of alpinism. And then I'm going to write a couple essays to tell, each piece is going to tell a story of each of those 3 characters, Mallory, Young, and Halliburton. So we wanted to take a moment at the very end to show you a little bit more about what it's going to feel like to climb this mountain. And as you watch this video, I want you to imagine, if you will, that you're a gay man in the 1920s. Homosexuality is illegal. You fear losing your job, just like Jeffrey Winthrop Young did. You fear being imprisoned, chemically castrated, being forced into conversion therapy. Now imagine 100 years later, you're someone like me, a gay man who was raised in a fundamentalist religion where threat of conversion therapy, community shunning, homelessness, and death were the most likely outcomes for gay people. Imagine having no idea about gay culture, no idea about the queer history in alpinism. Imagine also losing a career because you're gay in the US military under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Now imagine that on your journey to self-acceptance, you find that there are queer roots in the climbing histories, dating back to the early days of the sport. Imagine finding this all out and then climbing the Matterhorn yourself, not only to touch history, but also to connect with your roots in a time where you can do so openly, where you could be celebrated by a community of people. Imagine standing on that peak and feeling all of that history. I want you guys to be there with us. I want to thank you for listening to our project here. I want to tell you, the Alliance members here, that your vote matters. You can choose us, and uplift a story that has been historically erased. You can give us a chance to tell our own stories, and that is possibly the most powerful thing that I've ever seen in writing. You guys have that power. Please choose us. I just want to thank you so much for being along for this ride, for choosing us as a finalist. Charlotte, Jordan, I'm so stoked that you're here. This has already mattered so much to me as an individual, and I cannot wait for the impact this is going to have on our community.
Lance, that was beautiful. I mean, I'm in tears. And just a shout out to your husband, Oliver, who I talked to today, who made this presentation. And Lance, everything you just said was stunning. And I also just wanted to hark back to what Sabine and Savani said at the beginning, looking for endeavors that contribute to global conversations. I think something we've discussed a lot in this expedition already is how representation and being in respectful conversations with people who are different than you are is an active activism itself. And I think about what's happening in the Middle East. I think about that can apply to anybody. And I think that just demonstrating respect in a team of different people is just the most extraordinary and revolutionary conversation I can imagine. So thank you for including us in this. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for your presentation. Thank you to the Beyond the False Summit team. It is time for us to jump into that Q&A. We already have questions coming in from the audience, so I'm going to start with one of those. The first one we've got is, how will you hold the stories of these queer climbers gently and respectfully when you will be sharing their narratives and potentially ascribing sexuality labels to these historical figures when they aren't here to tell their stories themselves? So no one's starting with easy questions tonight.
Yeah, no, I will say that is absolutely a huge part of how are we going to tell the story without our biases, getting in our way. I will say that so far, in history, there has been a bias about these people's sexuality. It's been very clear, and we want to talk about that. In my essays, I'm going to discuss, why, given the evidence here, has this conversation only gone this way, and why does it matter so much that these men should be straight? I think about the Offspring. These guys were, in the 1920s, so maybe their children might not see this, but their grandchildren might see it. What are they gonna say when they very likely could email us, call us? Why did you say this about my family member? This is very important work that we're going to be very sensitive to. I'm not going to make any claims that cannot be proven. I'm going to be using biographies, letters, historical documents to discuss things and be very objective about that. And then it's going to raise the question, because it's not necessarily about these men. It's about what was it like for any person in that situation? Why was society trying to form and mold people? And then what does that inform us today? How does that, affect us on this climb? So we're going to be very sensitive about that. And we want to be as real and humane and empathetic with this historical stories. And we're not going to try to drag anybody through the mud or be immoral or try to push a narrative that's simply not true. That's the point of this, is to shed light on the truth.
I would also add, Lance, if it's okay to chime in, I think our stories, our lived stories, Jordan's and Lance's and mine and Ian's, our stories are ours to share, respectfully as we can. And then I think, as I've written about gender for more than a decade, I've been very clear, and I've had a lot of good instruction on our stories are ours. And then we can cite sources, we can, do original research, primary research, we can, but we would never presume. And I think this team holds respect in the utmost. We would never presume to project or assume or make assumptions, but we can say, I wonder. We can say, these are our questions, or what might that experience have been like now? So I think the intention is a lot of respect, and I think it's backed up by tremendous journalistic integrity.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charlotte, for that. Very clear. Yep.
I'll jump in now with another question from the audience. How do you see this project being a stepping stone in telling other diverse stories in the outdoors industry? And how will you use your collective privilege to empower the voices of more marginalized members of the queer and trans community?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in right there with the Venture Out project. They're our first connection, and we want to continue that. The more that we talk about these stories, the more we realize how much these matter to people and how much people want to get involved. And we are open arms, open doors. We want as many people to be a part of this conversation as possible. And there's going to be no barriers of that. Like, we're reaching out. We hope people reach out to us. That is an open invitation. If someone's watching this right now and you have something that can contribute, please come to us. We've been looking for people. We have a great crew already, but we want more. So please email us, find us on social media. We want this conversation to be bigger than us.
And I'm just going to ask, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry to keep jumping in, but, I would also add, I think, we need this grant to get this project off the ground. And we're very transparent about that. This is the grant that would sort of unlock this project for us. But I think, Jordan, Lance, and I all have, and Ian, we all have our own platforms. And I think, then distributing this throughout those platforms, and there will be innumerable spin-offs and, affiliations with different brands and organizations. And the Venture Out project is an incredible nonprofit. And I think, we're all people who like to facilitate and spark conversation in our communities. And I think I can't wait to see what that brings.